welcome. My name is Jonathan Schwartz, and I will be talking about gene therapy in the Danon Disease clinical program. I'm the Chief Medical Officer at Rocket Pharmaceuticals, and it's a pleasure to be here today for the Danon patient and family meeting. Been looking forward to sharing some details with you, and also looking forward to the opportunity to answer questions during Saturday's live event and by means of email and other communication as the need arises. No question is too important or too little, but hopefully we'll be able to cover some of the most relevant components of the gene therapy program over the next 15 or 20 minutes. Danon disease is caused by a mutation in the gene encoding for lysosomal associated membrane protein, also known as LAMP2, and specifically the LAMP2B version of the gene, which is primarily expressed in heart, liver, but also muscle and nervous system, including the brain. Gene therapy involves the insertion of a functional gene into patient's cells with the hope that that functional gene can manufacture protein that functions normally. In the case of Danon disease, the goal is to insert a functional LAMP2B gene into patient's cells to generate functional LAMP2B protein so that these cells can effectively process proteins and other materials that are no longer needed for cellular activity. How does gene therapy work? So gene therapy utilizes a delivery system known as a vector to transport the functional LAMP2 genes into cells. Vectors are specialized viruses, and viruses are very good for gene therapy because they have a natural ability to go inside our cells and deliver genetic material. The viruses that are used in gene therapy are disabled. They're lacking certain critical proteins so that they can't reproduce or cause disease. The vector puts a copy of the LAMP2 gene into cells, in this case into heart cells and muscle cells. It does not get rid of the mutated or uncorrected gene. That remains, but it's believed that that's not going to prevent the normal gene and the normal LAMP2B from doing its job, helping the cells clear debris. How does gene therapy work in Danon disease? So the type of vector that's employed in the trial is known as an adeno-associated viral vector. This is a type of virus that's found in nature that infects people, but generally doesn't cause much in the way of illness. The specific type of vector that's used in the gene therapy trial for Danon disease is an AAV serotype 9 or AAV9. And this is a type of viral vector that has a particular propensity to go to cells in the heart, including heart muscle cells or cardiomyocytes. And that strong propensity for transducing heart cells makes this a very good choice for the gene therapy program in Danon disease. The AAV9 vector, which contains the functional LAMP2B gene, is made in a specialized manufacturing laboratory and then packaged. When it's brought to the hospital for the clinical study, it looks like any number of other medications that can be infused intravenously, and it is infused intravenously generally over the course of an hour or 90 minutes. Slide 5. So the gene therapy clinical trial for Danon disease is now enrolling patients. This is a phase 1 clinical trial. The primary goal is to determine safety and tolerability, but we'll also be learning as part of the study as to whether the gene therapy is helping to improve aspects of Danon disease, either by preventing heart function and other parts of Danon disease from getting worse, or potentially even making aspects of the disorder better. That's not the primary objective of this initial study, but it is something that we'll be evaluating by means of a number of tests that are conducted both at the beginning of the study and during the conduct of the study. Information on the study is also available at clinicaltrials.gov at the web address that's shown at the bottom of the slide. Additional information can be made available to interested patients and families from Rocket and also from the participating centers, and we'll discuss that momentarily. Who is eligible to enroll in the Danon disease gene therapy trial? So some of the key criteria are male patients who are aged 8 or above. This study is starting in an older group, males 15 years of age and older. Once we've determined initial safety in that group, then we'll be allowed to test in patients in the 8 to 14 age range. Patients will also have to have a confirmed LAMP2 mutation on genetic testing and at least one abnormal finding on electrocardiogram, an echocardiogram, or other cardiac studies such as magnetic resonance imaging. Patients are not eligible for the study if they've already had a heart transplant, if they have very severe heart failure, such as New York Heart Association Class 4 congestive heart failure, or if there's significantly abnormal liver or kidney function, or any number of other more severe blood abnormalities. These are intended to protect patients because it's felt that patients with these sort of conditions would be at higher risk for side effects and less likely to derive benefit. Over time, we may be able to test this gene therapy in different populations, but this initial study, these are some of the key criteria. The full eligibility criteria are available on the clinicaltrials.gov website. Who will be enrolling patients in the gene therapy clinical trial? So, as of the summer of 2020, there are 2 clinical centers that are participating at either end of the country, the United States. The initial study center, the center from which the gene therapy technology was innovated, is the University of California at San Diego, with Dr. Barry Greenberg as the principal investigator. Also now participating is another center with tremendous cardiac and gene therapy expertise, and that's the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. It's part of the University of Pennsylvania, and Dr. Joseph Rossano is the principal investigator there. These physicians are both experts in heart failure and also in investigational therapies in heart failure, and they're supported by a very knowledgeable and extensive study team, both at Rocket Pharmaceuticals, but also many of the staff members both at UCSD and Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. So even though these are the leaders of this study, there's a large study team and patients who are participating in the trial will get to know a number of the research coordinators and research nurses and other critical people who are all part of the team to try to make this work. What does enrollment in the Danon disease gene therapy clinical trial entail? So there are a number of different sequences for each patient that's coming onto this study. The first is patient screening, where a series of tests are conducted generally over a week or two to determine whether a patient is or isn't eligible for study participation. Additional tests are done if it's determined that someone is eligible to gain the very best sense of their cardiac status and overall status at the point right before they start the treatment. There's a 2-week period for pre-treatment medications where certain agents are given to prevent or minimize any potential immune response that their body might develop against the investigational viral vector. And then once those medications are administered, the investigational infusion happens over a single day. And as I mentioned before, it doesn't take a whole day for that. It really occurs over the course of an hour or two. And that's an inpatient hospitalized infusion, after which a patient will remain in the hospital for about a week for post-infusion monitoring. And that's important so that in case there are any immediate side effects or reactions, we can monitor those and hopefully catch them in the blood before any symptoms develop and modify certain treatments so that hopefully for the majority of patients, side effects will be very limited and manageable. There's an immediate follow-up period after that, which might be anywhere between 4 and 8 weeks, where a patient is out of the hospital, but stays near the hospital to come back for frequent visits and monitoring. And then there's subsequent follow-up over the 3 years following the investigational therapy. That's almost entirely outpatient with periodic visits at a couple of months, and then 6 months, and then over the course of 3 years at intervals that might be every 3 to 4 months, or even every 6 months throughout 3 years. After those 3 years are over, there's also a separate long-term follow-up study. This is done more for safety, and it's a health authority requirement. Participation on that is encouraged but optional, and that would involve less frequent analyses and less intensive testing than during the 3-year study period. Slide 9. What tests are done as part of screening? So there are a number of different types of tests, including general assessments, such as a medical history and an examination, some quality of life questionnaires. There are also blood tests and other laboratory assessments. Some of those are standard tests, and some of those are specialized research tests. And then there are also cardiac tests and disease-focused assessments. These include images of the heart, such as echocardiogram and MRI. There's also a 6-minute walk test and EKG. Many of these are tests that might be done during the routine course of care for somebody with Danon disease. Slide 10. What tests are done as part of the Danon disease gene therapy clinical trial? Many of the same tests done at screening are done throughout the course of the trial so that we can see if different parts of the heart function and other parts of the disorder are getting better, getting worse, or staying the same. Some of the tests that are done at regular intervals, in addition to those mentioned a moment ago, are a test known as a cardiopulmonary exercise test, There's also some pulmonary function tests, and there are also biopsies of both heart and skeletal muscle at selected intervals during the course of the study. The heart biopsy is done by means of a catheterization, which is also a procedure that may be done outside of the clinical trial in Danon patients at selected intervals during the course of regular care and monitoring. We also will be doing some neurocognitive, neuromuscular, and ophthalmologic evaluations, because that's also a part of Danon disease. So this allows us to be able to study those. But we'll also be trying to make sure that there's a decent balance between the things that we can learn and also not making patients go through too many tests at any one given point in time. We do hope we learn a lot from the different evaluations that are part of this study, and that everything we learn will enable us to continue to improve the care and research for this disorder. Slide 11, how much will it cost to participate in the Danon disease gene therapy clinical trial? And this is the good news. Travel arrangements, hotel accommodations for patients and a family member, daily meals, and an incidentals allowance for the initial evaluation, for the treatment, and for the follow-up visits are covered as part of study participation. So hopefully this is not something that will place patients under any additional financial burden. We hope that we're able to take care of that part of the trial, including some of the logistic arrangements to help make it easier for patients and their families. If you would like to participate in the gene therapy trial or would like more information, please email us at Danon Disease Clinical Trial at rocketpharma.com, or visit our website or the clinicaltrials.gov website. We recognize these are complicated concepts. Nothing about Danon disease is easy, but we are here to make it better, and we're going to try very hard to do that. I thank you very much for your attention and your time. It's really been a pleasure going through all this with you, and I look forward to being able to help answer questions that you may have about Danon disease and about the clinical trial. Thank you very much, and look forward to meeting you in person, hopefully in the next year or sooner, as we work together to try to come up with better and safer and more scientifically and effective ways of addressing Danon disease. Good afternoon.